Um, so just first thoughts. What are some first thoughts people have about this quote? What do you notice about it? What seems strange? Go ahead, Felix. Sorry.
I feel like because like have Henry Ford with like the factory and like the conveyor belt like way of like producing automobiles at like a vast scale. I feel like what he's like talking about here isn't necessarily like simply like thinking as in like how do I pick up this water bottle, which I feel like everyone does, right? But like more of like the critical thinking part where you're actually where it's more like problem solving and like actually like generating new ideas instead of like just remembering what other people have already done.
Okay, good. Anybody have anything to build, add, shift? Okay. Um, how many of you, oops, sorry, I bumped. How many of you would agree that critical thinking, problem solving is a difficult task? You can use the little like zoom hand. What do you think? Think that counts as a difficult task? Kind of. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So we have two, 2 to 3 yeses and a maybe. Okay. Um, good. You can go ahead and clear those. All right. Excellent. Student number 2, would you read the second quote?
A great many people think they are thinking when they are merely rearranging their prejudices. William James.
All right, so William James was a philosopher and a kind of pre-psychologist. Okay, who is going to speak? Go ahead. No? Okay. Anybody have thoughts about, just first thoughts? Is it similar? Is it different to the previous quote?
I feel like it's kind of I feel like saying the same thing, but like in like a different way. Like the thing I said before about like how like instead of doing like critical thinking, most people are just like coming up with things that like have already like been created with like the same thing that he's saying, like rearranging their prejudices, which instead of like creating, they're just like 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 memorizing things that like happened before essentially.
Okay, yeah, nice. Um, okay, and if you feel more comfortable putting in your thoughts in the chat, that's okay. I have my chat open, so I will see what you type. But I'm wondering, does anybody have a thought about this word prejudice? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So I was gonna say my like how I thought about this quote, but I can also answer your question. Prejudice means I'm pretty sure it means like your opinion towards something. Um yeah, like your bias that you have towards something.
Okay, good. I do
That's
want
what
to hear what you were going to
I'm
say
pretty sure it
first.
means. Yeah. So, and then what I thought this quote means is that a lot of people, when they're engaging in conversation, they think that they're being like open-minded towards the other person, when in reality they're only like reinforcing their own opinion. Like they're not actually accepting the other person's like viewpoint.
Okay, good. And so that ties in with that idea of prejudice as being sort of predetermined bias or opinion that we've already sort of um, settled on. Okay, very good. All right, student number 3. Yeah.
Oops, okay. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. George Bernard Shaw.
George Bernard Shaw. He's British. He's from Ireland, so he's a British playwright. All right. Anybody have thoughts either about this quote on its own or connections to the previous?
I feel like on the surface, I feel like it's talking about how like a lot of people think communication is simply just like talking to one another, but maybe like communication isn't just talking, but like it's clearly like transferring of like information and like actually like discussing about something. And I feel like in a lot of times when we're just like casually talking to someone, there can be like this thing that happens where like we've like been talking for like so long, but we've never really actually like said anything at all. And there's like this feeling where, oh, like we talked, but like we didn't really get anything down. If that makes sense.
Yeah, like are you thinking like sort of small talk, hanging out talk, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I like that. What other ways of thinking about this illusion have people thought about? So, Serena, I feel like this ties into what you were saying about the previous quote. Do you see a connection there?
Yeah, so both of them are, I think both of them are saying that, are mentioning conversations that aren't really like, that people aren't really understanding. It's not like getting to like a deeper level where people are actually like open-minded and accepting others people's opinions. In this case, it says the illusion that the communication has taken place, which I think means that like these prejudices still last and they're not actually like again accepting other people's opinions and listening to the conversation.
Yeah, I was thinking that sort of tied in. Um, very good. All right. And our last quote for the moment. I think we're at you, Serena, number 4.
Okay. Science is a way of thinking much more than it is a body of knowledge, Carl Sagan.
So this one is a bit of a shift, right? A little bit different. Emily, what's your just gut reaction to that quote?
It probably means like science is like there's much more than it's a body of knowledge. Like there's many ways to think of science. Like there might be other meanings. You can't like think of it like looking at it in its basic, maybe like studying further what it means, like going further from like going past your knowledge, just like learning more instead of just thinking it like plainly.
Okay, yeah. I think that as a first thought about this quote makes a lot of sense. Who else has other thoughts about this quote?
So I think when it talks about like how it's not a body of knowledge, it's like talking about how it's not about like memorizing the properties of like a metal or something. It's like that's like maybe like when you're studying it in the first place, that's like kind of what you do. You like memorize like properties and elements and stuff. But like at its core, science is more about like being curious and asking questions and like going further instead of just like memorizing what has already been proven.
Okay, good. So even though it seems a little bit different, we still sort of roll back into this idea of thinking is what we're really trying to get at. So that was kind of the theme of the quotes and stuff like that. Like I said, it's kind of the theme of today. All right. So very good. Critical thinking is something that pops up all of the time. People talk about it in school, but you know, sometimes we define it, sometimes we don't. It's one of those things that has a lot of different definitions to it. So I'm going to have you all in your chat just switch it to be a direct message to me. And you're going to tell me which of these is the best example of critical thinking. A, B, or C? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, 5. So our cheetah is our winner on this slide. So here, the students are asked to explain why the poet used a specific metaphor. So we're sort of getting deeper into analysis. The first one, labeling, is more about remembering. And then reading a passage and writing the order of events is more about understanding it, making sure we know what's happening. And we do have to like maybe dig some stuff out if it's, especially if there's flashbacks or flash forwards. But it's still fundamentally about understanding the passage, not quite at analyzing it yet. All right, next one. Again, which of these is the best example of critical thinking? All right, so we have, I think that was everybody, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay, so A is our best answer because you have to have a short conversation. You're creating your own use with those words. B is pretty good because we're now starting to apply it, figuring out which of these, putting these sentences or putting these words into the correct sentence. So close, but not quite at the critical thinking bar. And conjugating the types aloud is, again, a really good way of remembering an important foundational skill, but not quite critical thinking yet. So one last one with critical thinking. Most varied responses so far. One, two, three, four, five. Okay. Okay, so again, a little bit more challenging, but when we'll talk about why in a second here. So A was the designated correct choice. Choosing the best essay doesn't necessarily sound like it's critical thinking, but going through and evaluating and then being able to defend why, you're going to be doing a lot of analysis and figuring out what's going on. So the way it was written here was a little bit, seems a little bit simple. But in terms of actually doing a good evaluation, that's the one that's considered critical thinking. Defining key historical art movements is remembering because it's about definitions, and then explaining the elements of a geometric proof or a geometry proof, making sure you understand what are the parts and what they do is about understanding. If it's explaining why you took the next step, then we get into the analysis. So part of how I was using those verbs comes from this Bloom's taxonomy. So we tend to think about verbs that are with understand, remember, and apply as being comprehension. Memorizing, everybody likes to sort of diss memorization, although there are important aspects to it. But classifying, describing, identifying, and then here we're applying it, we're getting a lot closer because we have to implement, we might need to solve things or interpret something, but we're just right on that edge. What usually gets defined as critical thinking is once we start getting into analyzing. So we're drawing those connections. We have to differentiate between them, explain what's similar and different in order to start questioning and testing some of our thoughts. So this is where we start not just taking something and applying it to something that looks sort of the same, following the pattern, but trying to test those patterns and start sort of poking at them. Evaluation is up here because you're sort of arguing or defending and judging, and you have to understand the value and how to critique it. So that's why it gets put up here. Even though, it's fair to say, oh, if you just ask for someone's opinion, they can tell you that without having done critical thinking. So it is a little bit of a different thing, evaluation versus just stating an opinion. So this is a particular way we're thinking about it. And then we sort of think of producing new and original work as sort of the epitome of critical thinking, where we're trying to really design and develop new and interesting things. So again, it's not, the creation of, being in elementary school and you're just sort of like drawing a picture or coloring something in, right? So it's a specific way of talking about creation. So Bloom's taxonomy is something you may not have come across, but is one of the foundational ways that teachers think about education. And so this is sort of where I was pulling from that as we're thinking about what is critical thinking. So these will be the skills that we're really focusing on. Anybody ever heard of metacognition? Or if you say something is meta, do you know what that means? Okay, it doesn't look like I see anybody typing, so we'll keep going. So this is your little bit of a clue here. So metacognition is the process of thinking. And megacognition is the process of thinking about thinking. So that's why we have our little brain thinking about a brain here. But we use meta in a lot of different situations. So, maybe playwriting we know is the process of writing a play. But if we say, oh, that play is so meta, that just means it's a play that's about writing a play, or a play about putting on a play. So it sort of is about itself. That sort of self-referential cycle is what we're talking about. Another example would be photography, is creating